Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. There's Cash in That Trash, Profit-Driven Circularity. Really excited to have you with us today. I'm Toby Spiro. I'm the Education Director here at AWFS. AWFS, we've been really fortunate to work with our main speaker on this program. The program in partnership with us really touches so many facets of what we stand for as an association and a trade show, supporting businesses with cost reduction, marketing our industry as sustainable, and supporting trade education. Before we started, I just want to let the audience know that you can put questions into the Q&A chat, and there is going to be time in the second half of the webinar for discussion with the panelists. It's my pleasure to introduce the creator of the program, CJ Nord. CJ is a visionary leader with nearly 30 years of experience in the manufacturing and supply chain sectors, with most of that spent in the woodworking and furniture industry. She's the founder of Supply Chains for Good, a platform dedicated to using supply chain to address some of society's most pressing challenges, combining her experience in supply chain management, her passion for supporting trade education, and her experience in the woodworking industry. I do think she is uniquely positioned to transform our industry in ways that really benefit current industry members and the next generation of manufacturing professionals. CJ's career has been built on a commitment to ethical standards, visionary thinking, and a deep passion for advocacy and sustainability. She's worked with both government and private organizations to prevent major disruptions in the supply chain and ensure the integrity of businesses in our industry. But it's her personal journey that truly highlights her resilience and dedication. In 2019, after her own battle with cancer, CJ became even more determined to make a lasting impact, which led her to launch Supply Chains for Good and create programs like the Civic Academy and this program, There's Cash in That Trash, Profit-Driven Circularity. In addition to her professional endeavors, CJ is also committed to education and community empowerment. She's worked with VCare to teach supply chain skills to high school students and individuals looking to re-enter the workforce, and also through her work with organizations like Skills USA and EXP. She's trying to help open the door for the next generation of industry professionals. Her expertise is also recognized through her credentials. She's a lifetime certified purchasing manager from the Institute of Supply Chain Management and a certified supply chain professional from the Association for Supply Chain Management. She's earned numerous accolades, including the Bravo Award for Bravery and Community Service and the Woman of the Year honor from the Women's March Foundation. She's been featured in major publications like the Wall Street Journal and the Los Angeles Times. And despite all her professional achievements, she remains grounded. And as she says, her dog is still unimpressed.
Completely unimpressed.
We're in for a really insightful and inspiring webinar today. So without further delay, please join me in welcoming CJ Nord.
Thank you. That's very kind. I'll wait for the presentation to come up.
Of course.
Okay, super. All righty. In today's webinar, we're going to be discussing why current attempts to create a circular supply chain are not working and how manufacturing can take the lead through collaborating at the industry level rather than trying to get this done one company at a time. Later, we'll have a specific example of why collaboration is the key to success. To begin with, I'll be going through a few slides where I explain this program and our progress to date. Then we'll have a panel discussion with our two distinguished guests, Robert Pelletier, President and CEO of Pacific Hardwood, and Ted Mayeshiba, USC Professor, School of Engineering and Principal at the Aditi Group. After the panel discussion, we'll take all questions and comments, and we'll take a few along the way, so feel free to type them in the chat as we go along. Now, just a pause, the reason that I'm emphasizing turning trash into cash is because a profit-driven circular supply chain keeps things out of landfills simply because those things are worth some money. And plain old money is the key to building lasting circularity, because once all parties are making a profit, supply chains flow without government intervention. One of the best examples of a profit-driven circular supply chain comes from the metals industry, which has made new products out of old products for hundreds of years. Metal scrap is routed back into the manufacturing stream consistently because everyone makes a little money for their efforts. And that money is coming from trade, not taxes. And that's what we need to turn the corner to sustainability. Circularity driven by trade, like the metals industry, because the value of metal scrap drives about 50% of that scrap back into the manufacturing process, as compared to wood in the USA, where only 5% gets recycled. Go ahead to the next slide, Toby. In July, I partnered with AWFS to launch the premier There's Trash in That Cash program to design and implement profit-driven circularity for the industry. We hear a lot about greenwashing, but this industry really walks the talk. For example, in the 20th century, their solution for how to make money off of a mountain of wood waste led to the creation of MDF particle board and other composite wood products. That was a profit-driven circularity solution. But we need to keep working on the wood waste problem because, as I said, only 5% of the wood in the USA is recycled. We also need to create specific recycling solutions for the composite wood that we created in the 20th century. Trade associations are the unifying force for all stakeholders in their industry. They're the key. They hold a uniquely powerful role in designing and implementing profit-driven circularity at scale so that we get this done maybe inside of a dozen years instead of 100 or possibly never. Implementing systems to use industry waste in profitable applications it's just too big of a job for one company. But it is possible at the industry level. And there's only one way to guide an entire industry, and that's through the industry's trade association. Now, if you think of an industry as a tree, the trade association is the trunk of that tree and the connection point from root to tip. Part of our strategy in this program has been to start in California, frankly, because Cali makes things pretty hard. And we figure if we can make it work here, where there are so many air quality and environmental restrictions, then it will be successful in any other state in the nation. This is so personal for me because I've spent 30 years running manufacturing supply chains here in California, and most of those years have been in woodworking and furniture manufacturing. And I'm literally trying to solve a problem that has bothered me for decades. I've hated to see the material that my employers have paid for go to waste, but on my own, as an individual buyer, purchasing manager, supply chain manager, I couldn't find the solutions. So I'm solving those problems today. Go ahead to the next slide, Toby. Thank you. I want to pause and talk about the help that we've gotten. Because of AWFS, we were able to get help from all of the organizations shown in this slide, and this list is growing every single day. Getting this kind of support wouldn't be possible without AWFS acting as that unifying force. I'll run through this list because it's just really, really impressive. First of all, we're getting help from the USC School of Engineering. That's been huge. The California Air Resources Board, Cal Recycle, the South Coast Air Quality Management District, that whole group is helping us with feasibility research. CMTC will help partnering California manufacturers with the process of gaining the Made in California certification. There's been some changes to that, and it's more possible now than it ever has been to get the Made in California certification. The Office of Senator Padilla and other elected officials are helping us find grant money and to clear the barriers as they come along. The Bioenergy Association is a trade association for waste to energy solutions, and they've been an amazing help. A group of us are attending their conference next week, and we're going to learn a lot in that conference. Pacific Hardwood and Westwood are wood products manufacturers who have helped, I mean, in too many ways to count. They've been absolutely invaluable. First Citizens in Comerica support this project and will assist with equipment financing at the best financing rate available to that business. And MUN CPAs will help with R&D credits. And I'm betting that the next time we meet, this list will be twice as long. Go ahead. Thank you. Okay, before we go much further, let's pause and take a moment to talk about where we're at and where we're headed. Our current state of our economy is primarily the take, make, dispose cycle, which is also called the linear economy as pictured on the left, as compared to the circular economy as shown on the right. To build a supply chain, when we're talking about building a circular supply chain, you need to link the buyer to the seller. So our initial research for this program is determining where the waste typical to the woodworking and furniture manufacturing industry has current and potential uses that folks would pay good money for. MDF and particle board are examples of something made through the circular process, as shown on the right, and the waste from the tree is routed back into the manufacturing process and makes a product that reduces how many natural resources, such as trees, are extracted. You can see in the circular economy example that there's no dispose step. For the most part, what we have today is this linear economy, which isn't designed to route waste materials back into the manufacturing process. For the most part, it's not designed to do that. Our program's objective is to design and implement the system to route this industry's waste back into the manufacturing process for a profitable use. To kind of place this in time a little bit, over the past 40 years, we, and by that I mean me and other supply chain professionals, pioneered the global supply chain we have now. But we pioneered a linear supply chain. And the state of circularity today is where the global supply chain was about 30 years ago. There's a lot of work to be done. This project aims to do that pioneering work needed to create a circular supply chain so it doesn't take decades to get the job done. We officially started the program in July, so we're reviewing the first quarter's work today, and we'll have webinars to update you on our program about every 3 months. And then at the AWFS fair in July of 2025, you'll see a full accumulation of all of our research and the results. Okay, let's go on to our next slide. Probably most of you on the webinar have not seen this before. The Earth Overshoot Day example. Now, although now and throughout the webinar, I'm going to definitely be emphasizing the business case for circularity. There's obviously an ethical case as well. There's really just one set of resources for all of us. And those resources must provide for the needs of Earth and all of her creatures for all time. When we route materials back into use, rather than extract more raw materials, we make Earth's resources last a little bit longer. This Earth Overshoot Day graph helps explain where we're at today. Earth Overshoot Day is the point in the year when humanity has used up a full 12 months of natural resources produced by Earth. It's kind of, in supply chain terms, Earth's out of stock date. Over the past several years, we've been using 12 months of natural resources before the year is up, usually by the 7th or 8th month. When that happens, we essentially start borrowing from the future and use up reserves. You all know I'm a supply chain nerd, so I can't help but throw a little supply chain in here. Supply chain reserves are called safety stock. We're borrowing safety stock from the future. Um, it's always supply chain's task to keep the balance between what people want and what's really available. We call this balancing supply and demand. In the natural order of things, I see supply chain professionals' roles as being essentially the keepers of balance. Go ahead to the next slide, Toby. Okay, this is kind of fun because I get to rat out Barbie. Um, Look, obviously, the key to building circular supply chains like we have for metals is to make new stuff out of our own trash. Shipping waste around the world is a bad solution. Shipping waste is a bad solution. Here's an example of how we got it wrong, just to kind of put it in a specific example. Mattel closed their last USA factory, which was here in Los Angeles County in the late 1980s. Around that time, the USA started exporting our plastic recyclables overseas. Our used yogurt cups, used water bottles, started shipping those overseas to be made into toys and then put back into ocean containers and shipped back to the USA to give to our children so that eventually we can throw the toy and all of the packaging away here in our own landfills. You see how we got into this mess? We must have manufacturing if we hope to achieve circularity, because manufacturers are the recyclers. We need to avoid shipping waste, sending our problems thousands of miles away to be solved. That's very silly. A key component of the There's Cash in That Trash program is to develop regional solutions. Now, to drive that home for this industry, remember that only 5% of the wood in the USA is recycled. In 2020, the USA imported over $1 billion worth of MDF. Just as importing plastic products means that we have fewer uses for our own plastic waste, importing products made of wood like MDF means that we have fewer uses for our own wood waste here. Bottom line, each region needs to make new stuff out of their own trash. Who makes stuff? Manufacturing. When we send manufacturing away, we send away the ability to recycle. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Here we see a couple pictures of typical industry wood waste. There's upholstery fabric to deal with, there's foam, small amounts of metal, various plastics. But our research has shown that the highest volume of waste that the industry is dealing with is mixed wood waste that has resins, finishes, bits of plastics like laminate in it. Mixed wood waste, unlike pure wood waste, has limited uses, so we're focusing on solving that problem first. Pure wood waste has multiple applications such as landscaping, playgrounds, cooking, firewood, and animal bedding. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So, my friends, what the heck can you make with wood waste that's not pure wood? Well, what we want to make is money. So shown here are some of the uses for wood waste with the potential to increase profits. First of all, we can make energy, obviously, right? Wood is the oldest form of fuel, so it's no surprise that it can be converted into energy. But what was a surprise is that we could do it in California. The process is called biomass, and a potential byproduct of that process is biochar, which is also called the new black gold. The other items shown in this illustration, the road's asphalt, the concrete, and the battery in the Tesla can all use biochar. Biochar can be refined into graphene, which is used in EV batteries. We found that really exciting. The fencing that's pictured here is shown because it's synthetic wood, which can use mixed wood waste. Now, the global market for synthetic wood was 280 billion in 2022, and it's expected to increase to 490 billion by 2032. So that would appear to be a sound equipment investment, and manufacturers could produce synthetic wood to be sold to consumers, or they might want to just use it in their own products to replace wood products that they're buying now. Okay, let's go on to the next, and we'll talk a little bit more about energy. That's one of that's really the most exciting solution that we found. The most simple, obvious solution is for the factory producing the wood waste to use it to generate their own power. This waste energy solution is very attractive to business owners because it has the potential to eliminate their electrical and waste disposal bills. We really did not expect the state to allow this, but I found that in 2016 and 2022, California passed legislation to support the expansion of bioenergy. I think we'll see that occurring in other states as well. Now, concerns about the waste to energy solution are really all centered around air quality. However, technology has been developed to solidly address this concern and not compromise air quality. Remember earlier when we talked about the importance of not shipping waste around? Some of the additional benefits are that transportation emissions would be reduced since we'd stop shipping wood waste. And this is really exciting. In the event of blackouts, these woodworking manufacturers can be the power resiliency centers for their community. They would be the point that emergency vehicles are being charged at, because even when the grid's down, they're going to be able to produce electricity. In California, there's a great deal of concern about the ability of the grid to support state plans to electrify the heavyweight fleet, and that this would put a strain on power infrastructure. Our solution helps relieve stress on the power infrastructure by taking whole manufacturing facilities off the grid. Toby, let's go ahead and play that short video.
Renewable Energy 101. Biomass, the original renewable energy. It's been part of our lives since our ancestors learned to control fire. In fact, it's made possible by the sun, whose energy is absorbed by trees and plants through photosynthesis, and then released when organic matter is burned or decomposes. First, there's plant waste. Wood scraps, sawdust, and crop waste can be collected from farms or manufacturers. The waste is burned to heat water. The hot water creates steam. The pressure of the steam spins a turbine. The turbine powers a generator. The generator creates electricity. Simple, really.
Over the last 3 months that we've been working on this project, one of the biggest problems that I've found is it's been disconnects in communication. And those disconnects are not just between business and government, like you would think. They're actually within our own industry. So literally, the upstream suppliers of lumber and other wood products in Northern California produce over 80% of the power for their operations through biomass. I learned that from an engineer at the California Air Resources Board. A whole section of the woodworking and furniture industry has been thinking, oh, California will never allow this, when it's actually being done by our own upstream suppliers. Our work is is closing those communication gaps and getting everyone on the same page so we understand the possibilities and the challenges and eventually the cost to implement. It's been boy, it has been a surprise to see how wide those gaps in communication have been. When I met with the engineer from the California Resources Board, and he explained to me that upstate lumber and timber operations were producing their own energy with this process, the California Air Resources Board engineer's question was, why aren't you doing it now? And here we're thinking that his agency is going to be the one that says, oh, no, you can't do that. So you see how big that disconnect in communication was. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about what we can make here with biochar. You all, maybe this is dating myself, but if you remember the opening to the Beverly Hillbillies, it was black gold Texas tea. So what we're talking about nowadays is black gold timber tea. The biomass process can create this product called biochar, which has a growing list of uses. It shows great potential. The EV use is really exciting, and I think that this should be on everyone's radar for a couple of reasons. Converting biochar to graphene to make EV batteries eliminates some of the mining. And it's well known within the supply chain community that there's a heavy human and environmental cost to EVs that largely comes from mining. We have a solution here to reduce mining and increase the supply of critical minerals for EVs that, solves a whole range of other problems. Talking a little bit about the global biochar market. Currently, it's valued at 763 million this year. It's expected to grow to 2 billion by 2032, according to Fortune Business Insights. Credit to Science Direct, which has provided the picture that's shown on the right side of this slide. Go ahead to the next. Okay. There's an old proverb that says, alone you go fast, together we go far. None of the solutions to turn this industry's trash into cash work unless we work together. We were able to run some rough numbers, and we found that one of the mid-size wood products manufacturers could only cover about a third of their energy bill using just their own wood waste. If just one company was doing the research and trying to implement this project alone, it would die right there. As you all know, manufacturing tends to kind of cluster together in areas. This map shows where there are at least 4 wood products manufacturers within a 5-mile radius of each other. They are all having their waste hauled off to a facility that's about 30 miles away. So the way that this would work, that we would envision this working, is for manufacturers to collaborate, and the ones that do not install on-site waste-to-energy operations can benefit by dropping their waste at the nearby factory with the waste-to-energy operation and eliminate tens of thousands of dollars in waste disposal fees and all of the emissions from trucking that wood back and forth. This would supply the manufacturer with the biomass operation with more than enough material to eliminate the energy bill, saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Now, it's, as many of you probably already know, it's essential to eliminate, not just reduce the energy bill, because that's the only way to escape demand charges, which can be as much as the just the energy charges. Both energy and waste disposal costs are rising. but I expect energy to continue to rise in California because of the electrification of vehicles and infrastructure, such as the LA and Long Beach ports, and because multiple sources of power, such as our nuclear power plant, are going offline. The law of supply and demand is always true. Less supply, more demand equals higher prices. Universal truth. So less supply and more demand of power will drive up the cost of power. Okay, we're going to have a next slide with just a couple of fun slides, and then we're going to go over to the panel discussion. I want to share these two slides about something awesome that we're doing. One of the greatest joys of my life is working with kiddos. And I share that love with AWFS and so many other members of this industry. I mean, we have hearts for kids in this industry. As part of our project, and we're really proud of this, we're developing partnerships between manufacturers and skilled trade education. So programs such as LA owned Rediscover Center, shown here, get free material from manufacturers that's just scrap and excess inventory. The 6 pallets shown on the left here are a recent donation to the Rediscover Center. These kids in the picture, these little kids are learning to build with donated materials that might otherwise been thrown away. Our goal is to connect manufacturers to K through 12 woodworking, manufacturing, and construction skilled trade programs like the Rediscover Center and the ones at your local high schools. This is, I think it's a beautiful solution for it only handles a small amount of waste. Really, in the big picture, it's really only a small amount of waste, but it's such a huge win-win in other ways because we're connecting employers to their future employees and to education. When we do that, education is developed in a way that supports the future of industry. It develops strong education when business and educators are connected. This also, I think, will bloom the opportunities for skilled trade internships and, frankly, helping the kiddos feels really good. I know that this industry donates a lot of materials already, so I just want to make sure that you're all aware of how to obtain the best tax benefits, because a lot of people don't do this. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see IRS Form 8283 for non-cash charitable donations. If a business gives more than $5,000 in non-cash charitable donations, as many of you already do, a professional appraisal is required. It's not always easy to find an appraiser, so the information that you receive after this webinar will include a link to the American Society of Appraisers Find an Appraiser page, so you can find one near you. I am an appraiser of inventory, machines, and equipment. Basically, what I spent my career purchasing, I now appraise, and I would be more than happy to be a resource to you. I don't have to get a project or any money from it. Contact me if you have a question. I'm happy to help. Let's go to the next slide, and then we have the panel discussion after that. This slide is a twofer. I get to give some smart students credit and tell you a little bit about our panelists at the same time. The team slide on the left shows the USC engineering students supporting this project through research and feasibility studies. You can check out the students' final project at the AWFS 2025 trade show in July. Ted Shiba, one of our panelists, is the USC engineering professor who saw the potential in this project early on, and these are his students. Oh boy, I'll tell you what, I had to up my game when I partnered with these USC rock stars. Really had to get sharp. The other picture on the right shows wood splits for grilling and for smoking. These are made from wood waste at Pacific Hardwood. which is our distinguished panelist, Robert Pelletier's company. And what's really cool about this is his kids are running this aspect of the business and learning the value of hard work at a young age. And they're doing what's considered a green job. The waste isn't traveling more than a few feet. And I mean, that's a perfect circularity solution. It's very exciting to me to have young people involved because this work is ultimately for their future and for the future of their children and their children's children. And when you have different generations working together to solve issues, you just develop better solutions. Okay, let's move on to our panel discussion. I'm going to take a minute to brag about these two gentlemen. Ted Mayshiba has a long and illustrious career in operations and supply chain. Currently, he teaches at the Vidarivi School of Engineering at USC in the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering. When he's not doing that, he helps run a managed services provider within industries concerned with maintaining private data. His experience with supply chain management comes from being a coordinator for special orders of vehicles such as police cars and right-hand drive vehicles bound for Japan. As you can imagine, there's a heck of a lot of supply chain coordination for a vehicle containing over 10,000 parts. Some of us have managed huge supply chains like that, and we understand. This experience held in good stead when he built a model for a weapon targeting system at Bradley Vehicles, and the entire supply chain needed to be modeled to assist in the move of a production line from West Coast to East Coast. It's pretty hard stuff. Ted says that he enjoys helping design a supply chain for good, and he has become a really good friend as part of this process. Now, Robert Pelletier and I used to work together at RSI Home Products, which is now American Woodmark. Robert was the Senior Vice President of Global Operations, which is an impressive role for such a young gentleman. So it didn't surprise me one bit to see him become the president of Pacific Hardwood. Pacific Hardwood is the nation's leading manufacturer of custom engineered and solid flooring, as well as molding, stair parts, and other accessories. Pacific Hardwood produces over 3 million square feet annually from their 3.5-acre state-of-the-art manufacturing center in California. Working with Robert, I found him to be fair, helpful, kind, and fun. His engineers had a basketball hoop in their work area. And sure enough, when I drove into Pacific Hardwood, yep, there's a basketball hoop right there. Robert has been really terrific about sharing details from his company so that we could develop accurate research. And both of these gentlemen are true visionaries, and they are engineers. Engineers turn visions into reality. So we're going to have our panel discussion, and then we're going to be able to take all of your questions. Robert, we're going to start with you. Quoting from your website, Pacific Hardwood focuses on sustainability in everything. And I read that, and you guys really walk the talk. Please share what you're doing now for sustainability and how that supports profitability.
Sure. Well, thanks, CJ. That's a very nice introduction, and it's always a pleasure to help and to connect here. Yeah, so raw materials comprise about 47% of all of our expenses. So it's very important to us that we're able to make the most of each piece of resource that we bring in. Our yields are extremely important. Our waste costs are extremely important. Electricity at the same time, which is one of my main motivators to be interested in this program and try to help it move it forward, is my single largest expense, outside of wages of the employees. So we have very sophisticated computerized systems all throughout the factory. So we have optical cutting systems, we have scanning systems for the wood as it goes through, and we really try to make sure that we're able to get the highest yield out of each piece of lumber that comes through there. So our yields are around 86%, which means only about 14% of what we bring in doesn't end up as a finished good to our customer. But an industry average is more like 78 to 80%. So we're proud of that. And we've really tried to leverage AI and technology to kind of be at the forefront of pushing yields forward as much as we can. One of our biggest waste streams that is not easily disposed of is we use a lot of plywood. So with engineered flooring, you're taking plywood and you're gluing a lamella or a wear layer on top of it. And because that plywood has adhesive in it, it's not just a pure wood product. So it's not easily able to be converted into other items such as pet bedding, which I'll get into in a minute. But with our plywood, we actually have partnered with 2 local manufacturers that buy our plywood strips, the offall or the waste strips from our plywood, for about 60 to 65 cents on the dollar, and they're able to repurpose it into their products at almost 100% yield. So we're able to, minimize our expenses, get our plywood yields up into the mid to high 90s, and partner with people, as you said earlier. So, CJ and I were talking, I think 2 days ago, and she was mentioning to me after she's analyzed our power bill and our waste stream, et cetera, that we only generate about enough wood products to power the factory about 33%. So I would be super excited to be the manufacturer that installs the equipment that can burn the wood and turn it into energy, and partner with other local companies to help them minimize their disposal costs. Thirdly, we use adhesives. So something we did about 2 years ago is I noticed I was spending a tremendous amount of money disposing of drums that had a little bit of the adhesive left in the bottom of it because it was considered hazardous waste. So we worked with our suppliers. It increased the cost of the drums about $10 to $12 a piece. But now they have a liner in them. So we're able to remove the liner, only have the liner disposed, and I actually have people come buy the drums from me now. So it's turned into a miniature profit center there. So it's just really important that we maximize every resource that we have. And you had mentioned smoke and slice earlier. So we are taking wood strips, and my kids are cutting them into little 5.5-inch blocks and packaging them into boxes and selling them on Amazon. And it's called smoke and slice because it's used for smokers and pizza ovens. So it's not a huge business, but they make a couple $1,000s a month as preteens and early teens. And more importantly, they're learning the value of sustainability and how to read a P&L and then understand cost of goods, et cetera, so on and so forth.
Wow, that's really impressive. I think that a lot of people on the call are jotting down what you're doing with your glue barrel disposal too. That's super smart. Now, Ted was reminding me earlier that he needs to drop off at noon, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of switch back and forth between your 2 gentlemen. So moving to Ted. Ted, I want to tell you that when you messaged me on LinkedIn and offered your help and the help of your engineering students, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. Not many people understand the role universities play in innovation. Can you please tell us a little bit about how universities help with business innovation and how that's valuable to multiple stakeholders, including the students?
Well, thank you, CJ. Appreciate it. And we're indebted to you for giving us a project. I'm always looking for challenges for the students. As Marcel Proust once said, our job is not to take you to new islands, but to take you on a tour of those islands with new eyes. So essentially, that's what the students bring. They bring something where, for instance, in Robert's case, he's got an operation he sees every day, every minute of the day, and there are things that are obvious to students who come in with fresh eyes and see something that's totally obvious to them. But after a while, you get you get used to seeing things because that's the way they've always been. And one of the things that I'm always impressing upon students is, just because it's always been that way doesn't mean that it has to continue to be that way. And it's one of the things in industry that we have to break through. So, going back to basics, it's like blocking and tackling. My job is to make sure the students understand how to do all the basics of blocking and tackling, and then they go out onto the playing field and do something with that talent. So we work within manufacturing or the service industry or logistics or medical. We've done projects in hospitals and the like. And for Robert, there's no cost. So we'll be happy to come in and do something for you next year that if you need any of our help installing perhaps this energy solution. one of the things
Yeah,
that we've implemented in other facilities is, we don't approach some of these problems as doing the whole thing. You can't eat the entire elephant in one go. Sometimes you have to take it a bite at a time. So what we're trying to do is, our first goal is to make sure that an energy solution certainly reduces or eliminates demand cost. So that's a very doable solution, because there is a whole host of other problems that come up when you say, I'm going to totally replace, I'm going to go off the grid, that you have to consider. And that includes, what do you do on the weekends? That a lot of people kind of overlook. And that's kind of the issue. But primarily for the students, they learn something because they get to see how things are done in the real world. And the clients learn something because they get a fresh look at something they've always seen.
That's awesome. And they're smart. They're smart students too. And a few of them are going
Don't
to.
tell them that to their face.
Oh, I
I
already
don't
have.
I don't need to deal with
I
with
already have.
swelled heads.
Let them swell.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, Robert, pitching back to you, how have waste disposal costs for wood changed over the years? This is an important story. Important.
Yeah, so up until about 2 years ago, so we have two primary wood waste streams. We have what I would call virgin wood. So when we rip lumber or we surface it, we end up with strips of hardwood, or we end up with curls or sawdust that's not, for lack of a better term, polluted with anything else, glue for the plywood, et cetera, so on and so forth. So up until 2 years ago, I used to get paid to have those taken away. It wasn't a lot of money, but I'd get paid a couple $100 a container, and a company would come and pick those up, and they'd repurpose them into different products and sell them for profit. And then I would have my secondary wood waste stream, which is anything that happens in the factory that involves the plywood and adhesive, would be taken away for free. So basically I had a little profit center for selling my waste. I could get the unusable materials taken away for free, and I would get paid for the virgin wood. Now I am having the virgin wood taken away for free, and I'm paying to dispose of the materials that have any of the adhesive or the plywood in it. So from a cost perspective, we went from generating $60,000 to $70,000 a year in income selling our waste to spending about $50,000 disposing of it. So it's been about a $110,000 swing there. And as the business continues to grow, that will just continue to become a cost center. We've tripled in size in the last 4 years. So if we double or triple again in the next 4 to 6, that swing will be $200,000, $300,000 a year. So that was a tough pill to swallow. So we're trying to get creative to figure out what else we can do with our waste. And as I alluded to a little bit earlier, if I wasn't so focused on growth of the core business, you can certainly turn some of the virgin wood into pet bedding and other types of products. And the wood strips are being turned into the smoke and slice product.
That's very interesting. And when you're talking about numbers like that, 100,000, hundreds of thousands, I'd just like to remind everybody that's here on the webinar that equals jobs. That's enough for employees. That's how much money a company has to hire people. So it really does equate to jobs. Now, Ted. Outside of the fluffy bunny marketing reasons, why should businesses invest time and money into developing circular solutions for their waste?
Well, I think Robert's done a great job in describing that.
There you
Better
go, right?
margins,
Yeah.
better margins, lower labor costs.
Mhm.
Don't make stuff that you are going to wind up throwing away. I've been in a lot of industries where you have a model changeover from year to year. And in doing so, when you get to the end of the year, you have a bunch of stuff that is old. Nobody wants it anymore.
It
And
does.
so what do you do with it? On the one hand, you have to have enough inventory to sell when the customer asks for it. On the other hand, if you guess wrong, you're stuck.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that that I've tried to do is to get the length of time to build down, and probably our best one was going from order to delivery from 6 to 8 weeks down to a day. And that had a lot to do with just the operations and breaking up the operations and doing it a different way. But really, that's why businesses should invest the time and money in developing the solutions as Robert has done, and he's done some great things.
It really has, yeah.
As he goes around, as he goes along, and he progresses in his operation, he knows what he's going to do with not only the product that he's going to use for the next operation, but with what's left over with from that previous operation, and thinking about what to make with that or sell with that or reduce the waste in that. And you know, the old profit equation is profit equals sales minus cost. So if you aren't going to increase the sales, you better figure out a way to reduce your cost.
Right, right, right. Now we're coming right up to noon. I know that we've got some questions that we need to take. So if we need to extend on a little bit later, folks, please stay on the webinar and we'll be sure to take as many of your questions as we can. Ted, since I know that you need to drop off pretty soon, in a nutshell, why does this work matter to you and to your family?
Well, I hate to see anything get wasted, like you and like Robert. You know,
Yeah.
it kills me when, I mean, I used to have to do waste management and waste recycling and the paperwork and the hauling. It used to be that we didn't haul it that far away. It was in state.
Mhm.
By the time I left that industry, we were hauling it 2, 3 states away, and the cost escalated just exponentially. So hazardous waste is really an issue. And his idea, I'm thinking, yeah, put a liner in. That makes a lot of sense. We could use that within aerospace and defense, which is where I came out of, because all those adhesives, all hazardous waste, you know, and you can get down to the bottom of it, and you know, the federal rules are, was it less than 1/16 of an inch of product, and the barrel is considered empty. But if it's a hazardous material, that whole barrel is now considered hazardous waste. So the barrel is expensive. Barrels aren't cheap.
They are. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really great. So the whole issue of reducing virgin materials, reducing the labor cost of handling it,
Mhm.
saving the planet, basically. Your one uh, slide of Earth Resource Day, what
Mhm.
that period when we're borrowing from the future, if we could extend that,
Yeah,
then the Earth has a future.
that's
If we
right.
continue to go the way we're going, the Earth doesn't have much of a future.
We're going to gobble it all up.
We're going to
Yeah.
gobble it all up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the more we can design in, this is the part where I've been able to do the most good, is if we can design in recyclability, if we can design in and spec the parts that we put together to make a final product so that it can be recyclable. If we go back to end of life vehicle directive from the EU in the year 2000, prior to that, we could recycle a vehicle 50% of the weight of the vehicle. Now we're up to 85% of vehicles in Europe being recycled and more. Some
Wow.
countries are doing better, but they've reached an 85% level of recyclable materials. And a lot of that is from design. You know, we don't see those big chrome bumpers that you used to see before, because once you chrome a bumper, that's not recyclable anymore. Right? So, you know, we've gone and we've made changes in design to make recycling possible. And so that's really the future.
I love that you're incorporating automotive in it because that's just such a far-reaching thing. Now, Ted,
It is.
I know that you need to drop off. I just wanted to thank you for me and for
Oh,
this industry for everything that you're doing and for your time today.
well, thank you. Thank
Great.
you. It's been great to be part of this. Nice to meet you, Robert.
Nice to
At
meet you as
long
well. Hope we can
last.
meet in person. Thank you.
Okay. So
Very
Robert,
good.
earlier, you had mentioned the improvements that you've made to essentially the manufacturing operation. And I wanted to go back to that because in the sometimes when I talk to the tax funded agencies, they believe that the solution is as simple as us making changes to the manufacturing process so that we make fuller use of the material. But I've repeatedly explained to them that we've been doing that to utilize the material to the fullest extent for a long time. You mentioned that you've got, was it 87% yield, material
Yeah,
yield?
correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's really astonishing. And you
Well,
have,
competing in California, it's very difficult to manufacture here, right? You have a lot of
Mhm.
regulation. You
Right,
have electricity costs are very high.
very
Employee
high.
costs are very high. Insurance is very high.
Mhm.
So every point of yield is significant. We do a little bit less than $2 million a month in revenue. And our cost of raw materials, let's say they're more like 45%, but to make the math easy, it's 50%. So I'm spending $1 million a month on, buying lumber and plywood and glue. So, just a 1% reduction in that is $120,000 a year. So we're extremely and highly motivated to make sure that we're doing everything technologically possible and human capital wise, to push that yield number as high as it possibly can be.
Yeah, and you're doing it too. Yeah, yeah. Um, Before we take questions, I wanted to stop and say one of the things that I've always known about you is that you're a very devoted family man, a very good father. Um,
Thank you.
would you would you like to share why shifting from a linear to circular economy is important to you and your family?
Yeah, I keep calling them young children, but they're getting older much too fast. So I have a
So am
15-year-old.
I.
I hear you. So my kids are 15, 14, and 12. And, it's important to me that, they're left with both a business and an environment on earth that they can, take forward and have the opportunity to build their life forward, much like I've been able to. I came from a very humble upbringing in upstate New York in a very blue collar family. And, we're blessed to have what we have now, but you can't take any of that for granted. And for us to be able to continue to compete manufacturing in California, we have to get our costs down. I spend about $300,000 a year on electricity. I'm spending $120,000, throwing stuff away. Let's just call that $500,000. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in projects like this and initiatives like this to help us be more competitive and be able to, be at the forefront of leading the revolution, to move to more modern energy sources.
Right, right, right. And the thing that we I think needs to be emphasized again and again is that there are not existing solutions. We need to create them, right? They need to be
Agreed.
created and designed. We're not going to Google it and find the solution and then go next door to solve that problem. It needs to be built. Yeah.
Well, CJ, you said something that really resonated. We have tried on our own to figure out how we can build fuel pellets and sell them somewhere, et cetera. But we're not experts in that, and we're not experts in what's allowed in California versus Arizona versus Texas versus Chicago. And I agree wholeheartedly with what you said that these problems and these solutions aren't going to be able to develop in a vacuum. There needs to be a community of people sharing resources and knowledge and being open-minded and not just being concerned with how can I make money on this very quickly, but how can I more, help set up a new supply chain for energy, so to speak, and waste streams, so that everybody can benefit.
Yeah, yeah. And AWFS and trade associations have a different set of strengths that they bring in. And the one that really came to mind is that these guys have lobbyists. You know, so we've been able to get significant help from elected officials because they have the lobbyist.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
you know, your individual businesses don't have that. Um,
Indeed.
let's see, Tovi, do we have questions to take from the attendees?
Not yet, but I'll just remind people that if you'd like to ask any questions for CJ or for Robert, you can go into the question and answer and put them in, and I'll read those out for you.
Okay, well, since since we're getting past the hour, I'll go ahead
Oh,
and
we did
oh,
just get one real
oh,
quick.
cool. Okay, let's hear.
So this is for Robert. Who is taking your mixed plywood scraps, i.e., what type of businesses are doing this?
There's a company called Artesia Sawdust, which is located 25 or so miles from me, that takes that, and they repurpose it. You know, CJ had brought up infrastructure and roadways. I know some of the waste goes into asphalt products, you know, that are able to be used, you know, to pave roads, etc. But it's called Artesia.
Mhm. Very good. Okay, is that our only question?
Yes, that's been the only
Okay.
question.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and advance to two other slides. We can just advance past the questions and then one more. Okay, what's this guy doing here? I have a confession. I have a confession to make. I love to tackle the things that people think are impossible. Always have. Now, I just wanted to share that when I work on these huge problems, things that people say cannot be solved, I've learned to get my head in the game that I need to use one of Eisenhower's principles. And that is whenever I run into a problem that I can't solve, I always make it bigger. I can never solve it by trying to make it smaller. But if I can make it big enough, well, then I begin to see the outlines of a solution. When we go from thinking at the individual company level and rise up to the industry level, we can develop profitable solutions that develop not just individual businesses, but whole industries along with communities in the future. If you want to solve the world's problems, you got to think like a world leader. Go ahead to the last slide there, Tony. Okay, great. There's my contact information for everybody. And I'm just going to close with, this is how we go about building a real life supply chain for the greater good. It's going to protect children through protecting the environment. It protects family prosperity through protecting the profits that pay for jobs. Thank you all for attending. You'll be receiving an email from AWFS with a recording of the webinar and an invitation to participate in multiple ways. And I hope to see you all at the AWFS show in July of 2025. Thank you.